These demons would come into my body and possess me, essentially, and speak through my mouth and drop thoughts and stuff in my head that I was here to help humanity ascend and that I was a Galactic Federation member. When I got into the psychedelic realm, like the two realities would like merge with each other. And all of a sudden I look up and there's 12 spirits surrounding me and they're all clapping and they're going, "We did it. This time we did it. This is it." They're the ones that invited me to do ayahuasca, and I did it because they're like, "Yeah, you'll do a decade of healing in one session." But then 3 months later, they're like, "You want to do it again?" And I'm like, "Didn't we just heal?" Nobody heals in the New Age. What I needed my whole life. Like I was sick emotionally, suicide ideation, anger outbursts, depression. I thought pills would heal me. I thought psychedelics would heal me. I thought the psych ward, rehab, high vibing, whatever, nothing. I needed a relationship with God, plain and simple. After a couple months of working as a psychic, I had a vision of Jesus. So I thought I better get baptized and show the outward sign of my inward change. I started questioning things even more because I'm like, how are there all these different denominations in Christianity that all believe something different? And so I went to Orthodox Church and I never left.
Welcome back to the Raised and Redeemed podcast. It's your host, Michaela Nikolaenko, and today's episode is one I've been anticipating for a long time. Today, I'm honored to welcome my friend, Kara Mosher, author, musician, and the voice behind the Let's Be Friends podcast, to share her testimony from the depths of darkness in the occult to Orthodox Christianity. Kara's journey includes mental health battles and misdiagnoses, psychedelics searching for spiritual truth, alien encounters, demon assignments, and Jesus intervening and rescuing her amidst all of it. Today we're going to be talking about her testimony to Christ as she shares it in her debut memoir, Here Comes Trouble, and the part of her testimony she hasn't yet shared much about, her coming to Orthodox Christianity. Kara, thank you so much for being with us today. I can't wait to talk about your story and hear more about your book.
I love being interviewed. It's so much fun. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I loved your book. I highlighted the heck out of it, and I tried to go through and make notes of like all the main points that I wanted to ask you about. And so I don't know how in order all these things are, but I said, here's something I love that your book does is explain things so vividly the reader never has to wonder about experiencing it themselves, i.e. the experience of psychedelics, because there's a lot of people, because of all the famous podcasters promoting psychedelics, oh, you have to do it, you're going to find yourself, you're going to find the spirit world, meaning in life. So many people, even Christians included, have become really interested and intrigued by this, but reading your book, you really take them through A, the experience, B, like how it was beautiful and magical for you at first, like your safe place, secret garden, but then C, how you eventually realized that this was like you were encountering demons here and how this was allowing them into your life. I guess I wrote that note. I said, but you got to see the end of the rabbit hole and the darkness lurking there. Can you tell us about your journey with psychedelics, what the lure was for you, how you felt on them, but what you eventually discovered?
Yeah. Thank you for saying that you enjoyed my book. First of all, I am honored that you read it. I was so excited when you wanted to read it. This is my first book, so I'm nervous author, putting it out there. But I worked with some really amazing editors. I want to say this first. And one of them who I worked with for the longest, Ariana Shafford, she had never done anything like psychedelics at all. Like she was born a Christian, always a Christian, like didn't like God protected her. So when we worked through the book, she asked me a lot of questions on how to explain to someone who had never done psychedelics what it was like. So I'm happy to get that feedback that it really like we really went in there and I really described things, because for me, like what you experience when you're on psychedelics is really like kind of out there. You're in the spiritual realm really, and it's kind of where you're not writing with words or, describing things. It's more of a feeling and something you experience. And to get that into words, into a book, to get the reader to feel like they were with me, but not have to do them was something I really wanted to get across in my book. Because just give a little bit about me, like I always believed in God. I just never knew who he was. I didn't grow up in a Christian household. No one ever talked to me about God or Jesus, but I always believed in something more. I was never an atheist. So when I was 19, I found mushrooms or they found me, I say in my book. And I instantly like the first time I did mushrooms, my bedroom turned into the closet to Narnia. Like I ran out and told everybody, Mr. Tumnus is in my room right now. Like I was seeing spirits like right away. Yeah. And then like the second time I astro projected and like my body split in half. And like spirits, eventually came and started talking to me. I had really crazy experiences naturally on psychedelics. And so, I kind of thought I was getting close to God because it was
Mhm.
so different, because I would literally like leave, and I didn't know like other people didn't have these experiences that I was having so naturally. But I thought I was getting close to God when I did psychedelics. And that's why I kept doing them, because I
Yeah.
would go there to heal. I would have profound experiences. And I did them for 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot. Too much. I haven't done them for 5 years since Jesus came into my life. Since I became a Christian, that was one thing God just slammed the door on, like from which is amazing. Because I was obsessed. I would say I was kind of addicted to doing psychedelics. I smoked a ton of pot too. Like that was just a daily thing I always did.
Yep.
But once I discovered mushrooms, anytime I could get my hands on them, I was doing them. And I did DMT and ayahuasca as
Yeah.
well.
Well, we're
But
gonna go into your experiences throughout this
yeah, yeah.
conversation. I want to hear because yeah, I didn't ever do DMT, but I was like right there. My community was doing it. I almost
Yeah.
didn't do it, thank God. Didn't do ayahuasca either, but yeah, my community was. So I want to hear what you encountered because I think it's so important. Like you have all these encounters with Hindu gods and goddesses while you're
Yeah.
doing this divination, psychedelics, eye gazing. And I think that's really important to note, like what you were doing when you opened yourself up to these Hindu gods and goddesses, demons.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. Fallen angels. Didn't know that. So I didn't, because I didn't have any kind of Christian background. I never read the Bible. Like, only had been to church maybe a handful of times with, like, I'd go with friends if I stayed the night at their house for a sleepover, and I had to go like maybe 3 or 4 times. And so when I did psychedelics and I was having these crazy experiences, and after about 10 years was when they started talking to me, like the voice. And I talk about how when I was in Alpine, West Texas, how a spirit first came to me and was like, ask me anything. And it started talking to me, and I could talk to them because I'm what I was. And I say was, I'm sure if I were to open myself back up to spiritual realm, I could still do these things. I choose not to.
mhm,
I'm not a medium anymore. I will not communicate with the spiritual realm. I'm not calling them in, none of that. That's closed off. But I was a natural medium.
mhm.
So the spirits would come and talk to me and show themselves to me. And I had no idea that these were the fallen angels. Because
Yeah,
had never read the Bible. I didn't know that, I didn't believe demons existed. I thought Jesus Christ was a fictional character in a mythological book called the Bible, and all Christians were in cults, and I wanted nothing to do with it. And so when I had, well, which we'll get to in the interview, how I became a follower of Christ. But once I did, and I started reading the Bible, the first chapter, the first book in the Bible I read was Matthew. And Jesus is casting out demons left and right from people. And I just started bawling
yeah,
because, oh, I'm going to get emotional, because I knew that was demons. I knew that was real because I had seen them, I had experienced them, but I thought they were spirit guides.
yeah,
And for a while, I thought they were aliens too. I do have a chapter in my book called Oops, I Went Crazy, because I literally started thinking I was a Galactic Federation member,
yeah.
because these demons would come into my body and possess me essentially and speak through my mouth and like and drop thoughts and stuff in my head that I was here to help humanity ascend and that I was a Galactic Federation member. Like you mentioned, I was seeing Hindi gods. Ganesh was the first spirit that showed himself to me.
Can I
I had
read
no idea.
a
Yeah,
section
yeah,
here?
yeah, please.
I think it's so I'm in your book, page 159 and 160. It's the Hellhound chapter. I'm going to read this first. I highlighted this whole thing. So it says, my awakening reached an unexpected hyperspeed acceleration in 2016 when I let go, blasting far beyond the tunnels and into another world on DMT. Then in 2019, I started waking up from my 8-year pharmaceutical slumber, because that's another part. You had these mental health issues. You took all these pills like all the doctors told you to do. You didn't realize you're numbing like your spiritual, emotional sensitivities. This is a whole journey in your book. Soon after, I experienced an occult rebirth. We're going to talk about that, an illumination in June of 2020 during my baptism. I just think this is a good summary paragraph. Then in September 2020, I had my ayahuasca working, and Kali arrived to begin the workings of fall 2020, because you had that encounter with Kali,
Mm-hmm.
the series of magic rituals. On October 10th, 2020, I finally made contact by summoning the spirit realm, astral projecting, and mind melding with it. Then in November, we summoned a legion of spirits, including an ancient lamb of our own, a demonic gray alien entity. Okay, now I want to read this paragraph, the next page. Usually, when someone does mushrooms, their senses are expanded, but only for the duration of the trip until the tryptamine wears off. Over time, I realized that I was slowly taking some of that world and those heightened sensitivities back with me into this reality. So you started having all these crazy spiritual encounters And I think this paragraph really summarizes why that's happening. Like, A, you are already spiritually sensitive. But it does, it reshapes your whole, like, now we know there's the Orthodox Phronema, like the mindset. But when you're doing psychedelics all the time, you get like this psychedelic phronema and
Hmm.
spiritual awareness. Maybe it's that demonic opening of the third eye where you just become aware of all these spiritual entities. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the chapter where I first started seeing the spirits when Ganesh showed himself to me, it's called Once You See, You Can't Unsee. So once you experience something, it becomes, part of your psyche, and it
Mm,
implants itself into your mind. And I actually believe that that's how demons work. They're like daemons, the back end that runs a computer, but they come into our mind and they mind program us basically and become part of our psyche. That's like even what you see in like a scary movie, it imprints you. What you experience trauma, it imprints your mind. And so what I was experiencing on psychedelics was imprinting itself into my mind in a very vulnerable like mindset like place. I also talk about the myelin sheath in my book, which is the protein that builds up in your brain when you have a thought. Then electronic impulse comes through your brain, and it literally physically builds up a protein which creates these metaphorical superhighways in your brain that make you think a certain thing more often. That's how I believe mind programming works. There's
yeah.
a whole chapter kind of about it in my book. So when I was experiencing stuff on psychedelics, um, for two things. Two, one, the programs that they're dropping in my head, like you have past lives, you're a Galactic Federation member, you're here to ascend, blah blah blah, all the lies that they put in.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you're on psychedelics, which enhances your psyche or psychedelics. Like I believe that the spirits come from like a dimension where they don't have form; they're disembodied spirits, and kind of like that black space that you see in Stranger Things where Eleven goes to that black abyss, where, I don't know if
Mm,
you've seen that, or
I
like in
did.
your when you're dreaming, your dreams come from the black space. The psychic plane is that black space. It's some kind of formless place, but these demons create egregores here through our mind, which is what we think they look like, the personalities that we think that they have,
Oh.
and that comes into the collective consciousness, and we actually manifest the demons and bring them to life, and it has to plant itself into our mind. And so when you do the psychedelics and you have like you're taking stuff that enhance your senses, these demons that don't have form come in through our senses. They make you
Mm,
feel a certain way. It's why we have to be careful of our emotions, right? You can't go, oh, I feel this way about blah blah blah. Well, your feelings might be wrong. These demons are there. It's like a chemical thing where they're using our senses, our emotions, our feelings, and they're combining it with this programming in our head to bring themselves to life through us. It ends up kind
mm,
of possessing us.
yeah.
So, but not only that, I was practicing magic where I was opening circles, calling in spirits, and asking for them to enhance my psychic abilities because I became obsessed. Once I realized in 2020, like for 15 years, I'd been kind of doing psychedelics on my own just for fun, not realizing that I was a seer, blah, blah, blah. I had been diagnosed bipolar in 2012. I'd had a lot of mental issues throughout my life, depression, suicide ideation, which started when I was 16. Um, uh, Anxiety, panic, things like that. Like I checked myself into rehab when I was 20, checked myself in the psych ward when I was 28. I'd had multiple mental breakdowns before I turned 40. Before more, this is my midlife memoir with many midlife crises in it. But when I checked myself in the psych ward in 2012, I was told I was bipolar within 10 seconds of being sat in front of a psychiatrist. And then through the next 8 years, I had 5 psychiatrists misdiagnose me bipolar. I was on 20 pills a day when I found out I was misdiagnosed. I why am I saying all this? Sorry, I get on these tangents. But basically, like, I was a highly sensitive person,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
I was taking these psychedelics, and I didn't know, though, that I had what was considered a gift in the occult, which was that I was a natural medium. And so when I got off pills in 2020, found out I had been misdiagnosed in 2019 before COVID hit and the whole, thing happened in the world. I got off the pills and I came out of a pharmaceutical slumber because those
Yeah.
pills had numbed me, though I was still doing psychedelics, still having experiences. When I got off the pills and I woke up in 2020, I had this, as I call it, my baptism, a spiritual illumination. The spiritual realm started actually like I like doing stuff to me. I don't really even understand like physically. Like I
Yeah.
would wake up after like summoning in spirits and doing these rituals, and I would like see more color. My psychic abilities were growing and growing. I could read people's minds. I knew things that I shouldn't have known. I could astral project effortlessly. Like, so not only were they implanting thoughts and like programs into my mind, which is what they do on psychedelics, through our emotions, through just dropping thoughts, and they were also physically changing me so that I could like that I was just like even more psychic. I don't know how else to say it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And maybe there's some bit of truth to what you think when you're in that world and you think you're getting like the DNA activation upgrade.
Yes.
You see it as an upgrade. You don't
Yeah.
realize like you're being altered for the fallen angels'
Yes.
design and goals for your life. But maybe like
Well put. Well put. Yeah.
yeah, like that thing that is that we think is happening is really happening in the spirit world.
Yeah, you're really becoming more of them and less
Mm.
of the way God intended us to be in his image.
Yes, whereas as Christians, you grow in his likeness,
Yeah.
participate in the sacraments that bring us closer to him. This is,
Right.
yeah, the counterfeit sacraments.
Totally. Like people, like, the magic is real. The occult is real. Like you can manifest stuff. Sure, you could probably try to make it rain or make, bring the love of your life into your life. But is that what's needed? Is that what God wants for you? Do we know what God wants? This was something that I had to understand. Like when we pray, like God might not necessarily answer your prayer as you want because it's not what's right for you.
Yeah.
You may have a bitter cup of medicine coming. You may not be getting that Lamborghini or that boyfriend or making it rain. That's the danger of law of attraction and manifestation. And the occult is, yes, you can make things happen in this world through only the demonic power
Yeah.
that's tricking you, but we're not supposed to be doing that. We're supposed to be humble and to allow God to come into our lives and choose what we need and we don't need. And often, that comes, like I say, as a bitter cup of medicine,
Yeah.
not manifesting the, money and fame and all that.
So I like that you brought that up, and it brings me to this point, I think on page 80, where you're talking about the sickness of the mind you experience. Like there's the one end of the spectrum where we realize, these things about life and we try to manifest and mold it how we want it. And then there's the other end of like, okay, I'm just gonna like victim numb out of it. I want to read this page about when you were on all these pills before you started realizing the control you had in the spirit realm, because that's a big like talking point in your book, is about the 30,000 pills you took
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
realizing it
Huge.
was all poison. You said, I know why we did it, though. The professionals, the experts we were taught to trust with blind faith, told us I was mentally ill with bipolar disorder, so I became a bipolar person. I gave myself permission to completely lose control, unravel, and come undone whenever I wanted. Where is that? No, that's not the part I'm looking for. I guess I'll just paraphrase it. Basically, it became like your excuse to not
Oh
show up in
yeah.
life.
Yeah. I became bipolar. Yeah, I mean, because I don't believe at this point, I just think we're traumatized, and highly sensitive people who are traumatized get told they're bipolar, and they get diagnosed with 9 vague symptoms from the DSM manual, which came out of the 1950s. And I've done a lot of research into the medical system at this point because I became a victim of it. I got really
Mhm.
sick on these pills. I had a lot of health issues and I wasn't getting any better. That's why I would go back to the psychiatrist and they would just put me on more pills until I got to the point where I was on as many as you could be on without getting any more and honestly poisoning my blood and dying.
Yeah.
So I was like, what is there something wrong with me? Like, what is this? They're telling me I have a chemical imbalance and that I have to be on these pills forever, but they're not helping me. This all came and I got off my pills in 2019 right before 2020 hit, and I came out of a pharmaceutical slumber, which pharmakia in Greek means sorcery.
Hmm.
And that was when COVID was hitting the world and the vaccines and everything, and I went from being like, I'm going to get a vaccine off the black market because I'm getting my DMT off the black market and I can find
Yeah.
anything, and to waking up in spring 2020 and not, and like getting online and starting my Instagram Here Comes Trouble, and like being really bold and talking against the pharmaceutical industry, which I do call, believe it, it's Rockefeller medicine. It was infiltrated through the Flexner report of the 1970s and Rockefeller's petroleum based pills, medicine, and it deemed holistic allopathic ways of treating illness as quackery. But like when you look back in time and mental health issues, like long throughout time, it was always seen as spiritual oppression or trauma or something coming from the spiritual realm. It wasn't until
Mm-hmm.
like the 1950s that they started saying it was a chemical imbalance, which is
Yeah.
just a theory. They create the chemical imbalance in you by giving you one pill, then you have a side effect. You're on 2 pills, all of a sudden you're on 3 pills. That's the chemical imbalance. This is a theory. And I was literally like basing my life upon believing that there was something genetically wrong with me. And I like to say this because so many people out there are told they're bipolar. Now, I am by no means a doctor or giving medical advice. I'm just sharing my experience, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm 5 years off pills. It's taken time to learn that I'm a highly emotional person. And, when I got off pills, I did dialectical behavioral therapy, which is a skills-based therapy, 1/3 mindfulness, 1/3 emotional regulation, and 1/3 interpersonal effectiveness skills. And I did that and got off pills, and I started learning to feel my emotions. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with us is what I'm getting at. And anybody listening that is been told like you're depressed, you have schizophrenia, bipolar, don't just cold turkey get off your pills. You want to talk to your doctor, of course. Like I got off on the blessing of a misdiagnosis. My doctor helped me get off pills, but what I replaced all that with was God. I
Yeah.
did not have a relationship with God when I was on these pills. I like to say I idolized pharmaceutical industry and medicine. I thought that taking an antidepressant would take away my depression. I
Yeah.
thought it would make me happy, and what I needed was the bitter cup of medicine to fall to that rock bottom because I was trying to heal myself, doing the psychedelics, doing ayahuasca, trying to manifest my way out of my illness, try to high vibe my way out of how I was feeling. And I needed God. So the timing of everything is like 2020. I got off pills after 8 years of being misdiagnosed bipolar, 30,000 pills I never needed, very sick. 2020 is happening in the world. I wake up for the first time in a decade. I'm questioning things, and I I realize that this world is a facade, that we've been lied to basically about everything. We've been indoctrinated in by medicine, by education, the
Mm-hmm.
media, culture, everything like happened really fast for me, my awakening. Then I started, practicing magic because I connected with some people that were
Yeah.
new agey summer 2020, and that just accelerated my awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And then I fell super deep into the occult, that I was working as a psychic medium, and I actually got a vision of Jesus that stopped me from doing that. And I had never read the Bible before. Something really like happened to me, and we can talk, more specifically about that moment if you'd like. But what after the vision of Jesus came in, once I started reading the Bible and I became a follower of Christ, that is when my relationship with God came in. And that was like
Mm-hmm.
2021. So what I needed my whole life, like I was sick emotionally, suicide ideation, anger outbursts, depression. I thought pills would heal me. I thought psychedelics would heal me. I thought the psych ward, rehab, high vibing, whatever, nothing. I needed a relationship with God, plain and simple. That is the answer to everything.
Amen. Yeah, and I do want to talk about that. And I appreciate you breaking that down because I think that's such a common trajectory for people. I feel like so many people in the world just take the diagnoses, take the pills, they look for the pills to save them. And then, say they do start to wake up and they get off this, then the next step of the trajectory often seems like, okay, now I'm going to take my power back because we've been brainwashed. And then they do fall into the occult. I see that happen a
Yeah.
lot. So then time gets spent there, and then God willing, He reveals
Yeah.
Himself to them and pulls them out like He did for me, like He did for you.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about that in between stage. After you started to wake up, can we talk about like the baptism and some of these experiences you had? Because
Yeah.
you said these very real physical things started happening to you, and I thought it was so crazy when the spiritual beings that revealed themselves to you while you were in the bath told you you had cancer and then proceeded to pull out blood clots from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
50, you said.
Yeah, yeah, it was crazy. And I actually that detail I left out of the book and then I put back in at the last minute because it was just so weird. And
Yeah.
spring 2020, I was getting off all my pills and I was pretty much completely off. And I was getting off my final pill, which was my antidepressant. I mean, I was on like some hardcore mood stabilizers, but the antidepressant was the hardest one to get off of. And side effect of getting, this is going to lead to the baptism. Side
Mm-hmm.
effect of getting off an antidepressant is suicide attempt. And I was having brain zaps, which is like, zzz, it was like, zzz, like in my brain trying to get off these antidepressants. And I actually, like, I had suicide ideation since I was 16, which is where you don't want to be alive. You want to be dead, but you don't have a plan of action to kill yourself. And I do believe that these thoughts are from demons.
Yeah.
Like you to kill yourself and you want to be dead, and that is cast down those high imaginations. Not today, Satan. This is why we need a relationship with God.
And
But
that's why they were also probably trying to give you answers about what the spirit world was.
mhm.
So, because you had maybe that was your hang up to not doing it is, well, I don't know what comes next and what is in the spirit world. So they're like, here,
Yeah.
let me give you this false
No,
version.
totally. I mean, it had always been like my burning question. I'd be like, how can I move my arm? Like, does anybody else think this is weird? We're in these bodies. Like, because I'd had levels to my awakening over like, my whole life. And we all, I think, are supposed to awaken and come to God. That's the purpose of life, is to get close to God, is to awaken from the slumber that humanity is in. It says all throughout the Bible that we're sleeping. God awakens us. He takes the scales off our eyes. And when I did DMT in 2016, I blasted off completely. I mean, not surprised. I would go super deep on everything that I ever did.
Yeah.
And a spirit told me, like, I was out of my body completely and was like, here you are. Look, you can exist outside of your body. They were trying to show me like an alternative reality. And so in June 2020, I've got off all my pills. I was getting off my antidepressant. And I actually, for the first time ever, tried killing myself. So I'd had thousands of suicide ideations since I was 16, but I actually, like, tried doing it for the only time. And it was a side effect of coming off the antidepressant.
Wow.
And I was at that point, I'm like, okay, maybe there is something wrong with me. Here I am getting off my final pill and I do this is awful. So what I did was I booked a hotel room because I couldn't be in my house at that time, because that's where I tried killing myself. I needed to get out of the house. I booked a hotel room and I took 2 grams of mushrooms, really some penis envy mushrooms specifically. And because that's what I did. Anytime I needed healing or I had a problem in my life, I took mushrooms, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have God in my life yet. And but that time though, I did something different. I took the mushrooms and then instantly I went to a journal and I wrote a letter to God and I said, "Dear God, I know you kept me alive today. Like, I didn't die, when I
Mm.
tried to kill myself. I said, I know you kept me alive for a reason. There's nothing that I want from this life anymore. There's no success. There's no material thing. There's nothing I want. So I said, I give myself back to you. You take this vessel and use me." And then I, took the mushrooms and I tripped really hard and I had what's called my baptism, because the spiritual realm told me this was my baptism. I got into the bathtub, and it's so crazy because this is a complete inversion of a actual baptism, a
Yeah.
baptism. And I was told I was reborn in the bathtub that night, because when I got into the psychedelic realm, like, the two realities would like merge with each other. And all of a sudden I look up and there's 12 spirits surrounding me and they're all clapping and they're going, "We did it. This time we did it. This is it. We've been successful." Like, I think it's because they got my attention completely and they are like, this time you're going to wake up. You're going to be fully illuminated. You're going to heal yourself." And they started telling me that I had cancer. They were telling me the whole world had cancer, and they were showing me how cancer was made through, like, basically like trauma and stuck emotions get in our body, and that because I had a cyst cluster near my ovary, and I was going to have it surgically removed like the year before. And it was a side effect from being on all those medications, but
Yeah.
also, like, I also had a vulnerability in my body for it to gather there. And that night in the hotel room, like, I expelled like 50 blood clots that were like huge inside my body. I mean, they told me they did it. They told me they were healing me of cancer. I remember asking them, "Am I going to need chemotherapy?" Like, the spiritual realm literally tricked me to think that I had cancer. And
So
I don't
what
know how.
they gave you through the chemical medicines, now they're
Yeah,
gonna heal you of it in this
exactly.
baptism.
Exactly. You see it exactly. And so I had something wrong with me. I did have something inside of me. Like, and we've seen the book of Job, like, God allows, like, Satan came to God and was looking for someone to terrorize, and God said, "How about my good servant Job?" Like, everything that the demons do, God allows. Like, we shouldn't be afraid of anything. We should only fear God. But these demons, gave Job like boils all over his body. Like they can give
Mhm.
us sickness and illness, and that's why I question the charismatics so much. They think they're casting out demons, but it's like, did the demon just walk away from a little bit because it was purposefully harassing you? Now it's going to make you think that it's gone.
Yeah,
So I did get
exactly.
sick from these pills, that pharmakia from the spiritual realm, and which I took free willingly. I took because I was idolizing it and not, believing that God could help me. And but yeah, that all came out of me that night. And
That's
but
crazy.
yeah, and I was illuminated by the spiritual realm. They gave me an assignment. Like they took they actually showed me that I had to write my book, that my story was my book. I had all these visions about it, and this book I had to rewrite it like 3 times. I thought it'd be out in 2020, and then like it was a new age book. Then it was a bad Christianity book because I was really, when I first fell into Protestantism, like I fell into the charismatics. I was being handled by a Christian mentor who was basically a cult leader. And it wasn't until I came to Orthodoxy, which is where Here Comes Trouble ends, me becoming a catechumen in Orthodoxy. That was what, God was really taking me to the truth. That's when the book was finally ready to be published.
Wow. And I relate to that so much because there's so many times I've tried to write mine too, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't know why these pauses happen or it hasn't happened yet, and God
Yep.
is just seeing something through, like, for
Yep.
us, for our benefit. So there's big questions I want to ask you that you just explained so well in the book. So not to jump to a whole different topic.
Yep.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the portal of eye gazing? This
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So just some like framework here. It's something I'm curious about because I was in this world too, and I remember first being exposed to the spiritual practice of eye gazing at my yoga teacher training. And I remember thinking it was so beautiful, to see and be seen. And I finally realized like this was like a spiritual portal. But
Yeah.
even now, marriage therapists will tell you to eye gaze with your spouse. So I'm curious, like, is the practice itself bad, or is it like if you're filled with demonic spirits, you're going to see demonic spirits manifest? Or like, say, like you are a Christian and you're filled with the Holy Spirit and you're eye gazing with your spouse. Is it dangerous then, you think? Or do you think, tell us about eye gazing, your
Yeah, yeah.
perspective?
I love your curiosity so much. I think you ask the best questions. I think that's one of the reasons that people love your show so much is you ask the best questions, and you're so yeah, no, this is
Thank
great.
you.
So I never actually studied the occult. I was trained in the spiritual realm from doing psychedelics and these spirits coming to me. So I never knew that I was learning eye gazing or anything, but I started naturally doing this on psychedelics. And with my fiance, actually, we've been together for 15 years. It's a whole other part of my story because we were together before I was Christian. And I'm Orthodox now and all this anyways, but we would do psychedelics for a while at first. So it got to the point where he wouldn't do them with me anymore because it was too intense. Like if you did
Yeah.
anybody who ever did psychedelics with me would be like, that was the craziest trip I ever had. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I would take people to the level that I would go to. Like the spiritual realm, which I knew how to do all of this stuff. Like it was crazy. It's crazy how I learned it all. Like I actually talk in my book that I think the spiritual realm started training me as a kid from lucid dreaming when I was
Wow.
little. Like it goes that far back. And what I was learning, I didn't know until later, was I was learning. I mean, it's Kabbalah. It is like Aleister Crowley's magic. It's Crowley magic. He, was created, I think it's the Thelema religion, and Aleister Crowley was an occult ritual ceremonial magician, and he was alive, I think, like the late 1800s to the early 1900s. He was ironically a Christian before becoming an occultist, but he was in the same cult as John Darby, who wrote the pre-tribulation rapture, which is made up by man. It was Francisco Roberta started it in the 1500s, who was a Jesuit, and then John Darby in the 1830s pushed it, this pre-tribulation rapture that's not in the Bible. And Aleister Crowley was in that same cult, but Aleister Crowley did, this is going to tie to eye gazing. I always have a weird rounded road to get to something.
I love it because
I
it's
don't have any quick answers.
your rounded road is dropping so many little
I
information
know I try
bombs.
to do that. I want to talk about yoga. I'm gonna drop yoga in here too. And so he did this working, and working is a series of magical rituals. And I did a working, and I realized that later when I was writing my book. That's why I write. There's ayahuasca ayahuasca working, then contact, and then hellhound. They were all part of the same ritual, working magic series of
Oh.
magical rituals. In that paragraph you first read from hellhound, I mentioned it, that I did the working. I didn't so again, I did crawly magic. I didn't even realize I was doing it until afterwards. And I was getting keys from the spiritual realm. They told me I was going to get 13 keys. Well, in Kabbalah, need keys to understand it. And I'm in a rabbit hole on Kabbalah right now, which is Jewish mysticism, which is literally behind Freemasonry, skulls and bones, every single thing that you see going on right now.
I've always wondered what exactly Kabbalah is. Like, I know it's something
It's
evil and
it's a form
satanic.
of Judaism. It's Jewish mysticism. It is literally what tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden. The tree of life that she bit from is the Kabbalah tree. So Lucifer fell. He was a fallen angel. He was the light bearer. God gave him like he would literally, like, God created the light. Lucifer was the light bearer. So Lucifer, that's why he thought he could be like God, because he had the light. He was moving it. You get what I'm saying? So he
Mm,
fell because of pride, because he wouldn't acknowledge that God created the light. He wanted to be the creator of the light. And a third of the fallen angels supposedly fell with him and came to this world. And Lucifer is running this world right now and trying to convince people that God doesn't exist, because because Lucifer, who is Satan, once he fell, is the light bearer. That was what he got. But that's why he's trying to erase God, because if you don't know where the light comes from, then you're going to think the light bearer is God. So I write a chapter in my book
mm,
called Lucifer's Labyrinth, which really talks about all this, but it all ties to Kabbalah and their tree of enlightenment.
yeah,
That's what Eve bit off of. Lucifer got into her head.
yeah.
Yeah, that happened. So, anyways,
I love
um,
how you say in the book too how it all happens in our minds.
yep,
Like,
yeah,
it's all happening in here. And some
yep.
people, like the very secularists who don't see the spiritual world, are like, yeah, it's happening in your mind. You guys are crazy. Okay, but it's real. It's the real
No, it's
spiritual world
yeah.
happening
I
in
don't
the
even think we're
mind.
supposed to be thinking. Yeah, it's deep. But so with eye gazing, Aleister Crowley did a working called the Alma working in 1921, where he used a medium, Margie. I read about her in my book. I can't remember her. Roddy Miner is her name, and he had to use a medium to do this. Women are very sensitive, right? So through her eyes, they must have been eye gazing. Lamb was pulled out, which is a gray demon, and you know the gray aliens. That was the first gray alien, and
I saw one when I was like 16. So,
yep,
yeah.
I saw one too. I pulled one out of someone's eyes. A girl named Ruby in my book
Yeah.
actually pulled. So eye gazing is so what it is a method that Aleister Crowley used. I don't want to like go into too much detail on how to do it, because I don't want to teach people
Well,
magic,
people
but
better not do it because
don't do
obviously
it.
it's
No,
demons.
eyes. Well, we as Orthodox Christians, the Bible is so important to us. It's the most holy book ever. It's our foundation of truth, and then of course, but interpreted by the Spirit, Church Fathers and the saints. We don't
Yeah.
interpret the Bible ourselves. And so the Bible tells us that the eyes are the windows to the soul, basically. That they're the lamps, so the light comes out of there. So the eyes are a
Yes.
portal. Your ears are a portal. Your mouth, like you know, when you get chrismed, they put oil over the portals, right?
Yes.
And so the eyes are the windows of the soul, and you can see if someone's demonically possessed if their eyes are black, how
Mm.
black their eyes are. And I remember when I was first starting to see that in people, and my eyes used to be black. So when you're eye gazing, you are pulling the spirits. You can pull the spirits out of someone's eyes. That's how Ganesh first showed himself to me, as I pulled him out of my friend Alice's eyes, staring at her. So you have to be careful. Now, when it comes to marriage counseling, I heard something interesting about this. When we do confession, we don't go in with our husband or our boyfriend. You go in alone with your spiritual father. So the whole concept of marriage counseling, I heard, came out of, again, like the 1950s and the counterculture revolution, when our medical system was changed. I don't even really believe in marriage
Okay.
counseling. I think that
All the
we
men are going to be like,
yeah,
yeah.
I know. I actually think that we just go and we need to. I mean, I'm not saying it. I was in therapy forever, and it was really great for me at the time. But my counselor, I mean, like forever. Like I had a counselor for 8 years. She finally graduated me and said, "You're fine." I wasn't fine, but like I did it. You know, I did group therapies, everything, and they're wonderful. I'm not saying don't do them, but
Yeah.
do we need to like have a man and a wife sitting in front of each other with some kind of medium? Like, is it unless it's your spiritual father? Who would you be listening to for
Well,
advice on
no,
your life?
just each other.
Oh, okay. So
Um, like, yeah, just in the privacy of your home.
Yeah.
like gazing into each
Okay.
other's
Okay. So
eyes.
it's not like in front. Okay. I was picturing like two people sitting on a couch with a counselor right there, gaze. You know what?
No.
But yeah,
But
no.
they
So
do
just,
recommend it. They
yeah.
do like,
Well,
there's a practice of, like, looking at each other for, like, a 4-minute set a 4-minute timer and
oh
just
gosh, I
look at
don't
each
know.
other.
That seems a little vulnerable for me. I probably would start laughing, but after like 10
My
seconds,
husband is so ADHD, he's, like, all over the place, picking his
yeah.
nails. It
Yeah, I
doesn't work for
mean,
us.
if it's yeah, like if it's your when you get married, two become one. Your souls become one in the Orthodox Church. I believe in Orthodox marriage is the only true marriage ceremony. I believe in Orthodox baptism is the only true baptism, and I'm really staunch on that. So if you're married to somebody, yeah, you can. That's your two becomes one. That's the other part of your soul. That's the antithesis of the twin shadow, right? That twin
Yeah.
shadow crap. You're supposed
Yeah.
because like in Orthodoxy, you're supposed to work out your salvation in one of two ways: either become a monastic and marry the church, or you get married and you work out your salvation. And I talk about in my book, there's a
Yeah.
chapter called What is Love? I talk about how this world tells us love is like a rom-com. You're going to find your perfect person. You're going to have this beautiful white wedding and this wonderful life, and everything's going to be just perfect. And if it doesn't work out, just get divorced and marry someone else. But then in God's definition of love is a little different. Love
Yeah.
endures, love is patient, love is kind, love is not boastful. Like
Yeah.
I actually think that marriage is just two people like committed to each other and loving each other and enduring the hardships of this life, and we need to be polished, and we need friction to be polished, and a relationship's not
Yeah.
going to be perfect. And I really think like everything that Satan, who was Lucifer, two of the same, has done in this world, especially with movies, is tricked us into thinking that love's going to be a certain thing, and that's not it, and we're just disappointed.
Yeah.
I just yeah.
Marriage
So
is
eye
the
gazing,
hardest thing I've ever done.
good. That's amazing. This is great for your salvation. That it's
Yes.
not supposed to be easy. We're supposed to suffer. If
Yeah.
you're not suffering, and I just read a Seraphim Rose quote that's like, if you're just relaxing and enjoying life, like, watch out. That's not like that's a little bit of self worship. That's kind of atheist a little bit, like
Yep.
self worshiping. But it's supposed to be a struggle. It's not supposed to be easy. Like and the saints tell us if we had a glimpse of paradise, we would endure every single trial and hardship here with joy, because what God has in store for us, what is coming, is beyond anything we could ever know. And we just need to take one day at a time, one second of eye gazing at a time. I'm not going to say if it's right or wrong. Do not open circles and eye gaze. That's a little bit
Yeah.
different. Don't take psychedelics or call in spirits and eye gaze. That's
Right.
different. And so there's intention is everything. Like even you
Yeah.
were talking about trick or treating, like so what? So go trick or treating. You're Christian. You go to church. Like you're not like calling in witches and demons. You're just trying to have fun in this world that we live in, and you cannot escape Lucifer's
Yeah.
labyrinth while you're here. It's everywhere
It's
and
here.
everything.
Yeah.
But we
And
have to Psalms 90 weigh our one through it. With when we make the most high, Psalms 91 is one of my favorite psalms. Is when you make the most high your fortress, he will protect you. Like 10,000 will fall by one side,
mhm.
1,000 by the other. But when you make the Lord the most high your fortress, he will cover you in his wings, his buckler and his shield, and you will be okay. That's how, because we're going to walk through the shadow of the valley of death. We're
Yep.
here for tribulation, but God is going to protect us through it
Yep.
because we have to have faith.
Yeah, I think that's part of what
The armor of God.
Halloween reminds us of, all that decor outside. It's
Yeah.
reminding us what we're walking through in reality in this life. And
Yeah.
I think it is a good reminder,
Yeah.
that we walk amongst these things and death is inevitable, and we have to remember our victory in Christ over all of those
Yeah.
things.
And death is I think about my death every day. And I actually have like my whole life. And that's what was bothering me so much and why I was taking the psychedelics and trying to figure things out, because I
Mm,
knew we're going to die. And we all should be thinking about this every day, because we're to die to this world. Our flesh is supposed to die. We're supposed to be
yeah.
reborn in Christ. And in Orthodoxy, skulls are a big thing. Like we venerate bones because the relics of the saints and holy things are holy. And did you know that priests have a cross on their skull? Yes, every priest when they die. When Orthodoxy, if you look at Mount Athos, they collect all of the skulls. Yeah, like
Really?
yeah, so like yeah, and priests all have a cross on their skull, every single one of them. And like when people have saints, like you die and they bury the body, but then like 4 or 5 years later, when the timing's right, they dig up the body and they try to see, is it incorrupt? That's how you know that somebody becomes a saint. And then we
Wow.
venerate their bones and we kiss them because these items, they're still holy and they heal people. Like that's why we go and make pilgrimages to monasteries and holy places. Sorry, I could go on and on about
No,
Orthodoxy. We're talking about my book.
I love it. I love it. And honestly, like I didn't know exactly the direction this conversation was going to go, but it's just went perfectly. Something I do want to talk about is that vision of Jesus that first brought you into becoming a
Yeah.
Christian. You were working as a psychic medium, channeling for people. It's kind of on the topic of eye gazing, right? Because
Yeah.
you had to have a
Oh yeah.
picture of this
Yeah,
person.
you're 100% right. Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us about that. Like you had,
Mhm.
do you remember what that process was? You had to have their
Yeah.
picture and you're
Oh yeah.
gazing with their eyes to
Oh yeah.
channel a message for them?
Yeah. So I never, honestly, I never believe it's so crazy. I called myself an accidental psychic at first because I was literally like doing psychedelics for over a decade, astral projecting, talking to spirits, seeing them, and just thinking it was psychedelics and I was having fun. And then I met that group after my baptism. Of course, the spiritual realm aligned me with a group of occultists.
The wound or a different
Yeah,
one?
I call them the wound in the book. They had a church, and I changed everybody's names in the book. Everybody's names are changed, but they had created like a church, and I
Mhm.
called it was the Church of the Sacred Womb. But
Yeah.
I used to joke around and call them the wound because everybody in the New Age never healed. It was like they told me they're the ones that invited me to do ayahuasca, and I did it because they're like, yeah, you'll do a decade of healing in one session. But then on 3 months later, they're like, you want to do it again? And I'm like, didn't we
Yes.
just heal? Nobody heals in the New Age.
And I
Because
see all the same people I left in Arizona, they're still doing that
yeah,
crap like
they're
once every couple months, going on
still
these
trying to
retreats.
ascend.
Yeah.
Yeah, them and they might miss the spaceship. But anyway, sorry. But
Oh, you
so
just reminded me of another question. So after we
okay,
talk about
yeah.
this one,
So the psychic stuff. Yeah. So
yes.
I actually summer 2020, I started talking to a psychic. A friend connected me with a psychic and Charlotte. I talk about her a lot in the book because I was obsessed with Charlotte. I would meet with her once a month. She would remote view into my room. She would tell me what's around me. She was communicating with spiritual realm. It got to the point where I would see the exact same things that she would see in the spiritual realm. Like we'd both
Wow.
see a table, we'd both know exactly what was on it. Like on 10/10/2020, I did a ritual with Ruby, who became one of my best friends, and I met her through the wound. And we summoned in spirits that day, and I literally completely mind melded with a demon. It's in my book. It's the chapter called Contact. And after that happened, I thought aliens had come to me. And when I got on the phone with Charlotte, like a week later, she's like, "There's a star being with you now." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I know. I mind melded with it." Like, and how did she knew? So I started having these crazy experiences with talking to her, a psychic medium. And eventually I booked a session with a very famous shaman whose name I'm not going to say. I paid $1,000 and he walked me into the first stage of enlightenment, the false enlightenment. There's two enlightenments. There's one the spiritual realm gives you, that Lucifer gives you. That's the wrong one. There's the one God gives you, and that's only given through humility. It's completely
Mhm.
different. One's through pride, one's through humility. And so I was getting the pride enlightenment first. And that's when you wake up to this world, you see all the conspiracies and you think you're special, prelist, by the
Yeah.
way. Yeah. And so after meeting with the shaman and talking to Charlotte, I realized I could be I was like, I have a gift and I need to work as a psychic. And I was charging like $200 an hour to work as a psychic. I was so good at it. I was so busy. I had to I had to deny people for sessions. Like it was so easy for me at this point because I had been doing the psychedelics. They had been activating and accelerating my psychic abilities. Like I could read people's minds. Like it was, and so to do it over the phone, because I was doing readings for people around the world, I would need a picture of them, and all I needed to do was stare into their eyes, and I would get all the information I needed. I would do it ahead of time, and then I'd get on the phone with them, and we'd Zoom call, and I could you stare into the eyes. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
And different like spirits would appear to you, or was it like visions of different
Different
spirits?
spirits would come and I would get the visions and they would give me information. They'd drop things about their lives into my head. I would just know about stuff. I would know what to ask them. I would get most information without words. So I like kind of talk about that in my book, how words are almost hard for me, like, or you would be like to translate it in, but I would also channel energies to people. I was a conduit for that. So I've repented for all of this too. And so because it's not okay. It's not good. And I pray for those people that I worked with. But what happened was after a couple months of working as a psychic, I had a vision of Jesus come through. And at that time, I thought he was a fake person, that he had never lived. So I'm like, oh God, Jesus is here. I was embarrassed to tell my client. And I was like, must be the ascended master, because I had been hearing about Christ consciousness and the
Mm-hmm.
ascended master Jesus. Oh, he's the best prophet ever. Oh, he's the best prophet ever, but he's a liar. He also said he was God, but he wasn't. I mean, come on. It was God in the flesh, fully God, fully human. Jesus Christ, part of the Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, all fully God on their own and combined, also fully God.
Yeah.
So I got the vision of Jesus, told my client, and something happened to me over the next couple weeks that I'd write about in my book. It was kind of hard to describe because it was so profound, but I would fall to my knees and start crying and be like, oh, Jesus was God. Oh my gosh, they killed him. They sacrificed him. Because I woke up in 2020 after my baptism. Part of what the spiritual realm did to me is I knew everything. Like, I'm telling you, like, I just had to go, oh, 9/11. Oh, yeah, I get it. That was a psyop. Took me 20 years. Or I looked at this and I got everything kind of backwards, like, because this world's a lie. And that's a lot of what I do online now. And I'm trying not to do too much conspiracy stuff, but I got most of my following online decoding conspiracy and the occult symbolism because I became an expert at it because the spiritual
Yeah.
realm shared their secrets with me.
Yeah.
And
Which you should expose that. I
no, and they're not happy about it. But any Father, Son, Holy Spirit, I've got
Yeah.
God protecting me. But so I after the vision, I just like I came like the Holy Spirit, I think got me is what happened, is it changed me, and I knew that Jesus was God and that he was real, and I stopped all divination. So I tell people I was making $200 an hour, not to brag, but to say I walked away from doing that. I
Yes.
let it go, and I asked Jesus to close my third eye right away. I said, no, I'm no more spirits talking to me. I stopped all divination. I threw away my tarot cards, which I didn't need anymore. I didn't need any tools.
Yeah.
But yeah, I walked away from it all and gave it up for Christ.
I know exactly what you mean too when it starts clicking who Jesus really was and you're just like blindsided left and right and that emotion of oh my gosh, like he was casting out demons, like that's what he was here doing, especially after you start, well, a lot of people are encountering demons and they think they're just aliens or spirit guides, but then when it clicks for them that they're demons and then it clicks for them
Yeah.
that Jesus was God and Jesus came here and was casting out demons, yeah, he was like a superhero for me, like this
Yeah.
like bad A, like going
Yeah.
around, you know?
I know. And you see how much the world hates him. I couldn't even say the name Jesus Christ. I
Yeah.
was like possessed. I mean, it's very real. Like and the word Jesus Christ is so powerful. Demons shudder at the name Jesus Christ. They know
Wow.
Jesus is Lord. But they don't follow him. They don't repent. We need to have humility. I believe that humility saves us, repentance saves us, and then communion perfects us.
Mm, I love that. My baby woke up, but I want to squeeze in a little bit more.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
not screaming for me yet. Can you tell us what are the Akashic records?
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, the Akashic Akashic. It is a real thing. I would tap into this. It started on psychedelics where I do this because it always felt like it was up above. Because I do think there's different dimensions of energy that exist. But what it first came to me is I realized I could. It was like Google in my mind. I could answer. I would tell my friends on psychedelics. I'd be like, ask me anything. Ask me anything, and I would know the answer. I would know the answer. And also in that information field was supposedly past lives. So that's how we know
Mhm.
it's not true. We get one life. We do not have past lives. That's a lie from Satan to make you think you've got multiple chances here and you do not. You got to
Yeah.
get this is the one chance we have.
And
So
to connect with those demons, those familiar spirits or whatever that are presenting themselves to you as, oh, I'm one of your
yeah,
past selves.
right? And
Okay, carry on,
so yeah,
sorry.
no, and like so the Akashic I started having to think like I have one of my best friends, Nick Hinton. He's on X and Twitter X, whatever. I still feel weird calling it X.
I know.
He writes a lot of threads about this, and we've podcasted on my podcast, Let's Be Friends. We did a series called AI and the Antichrist because I started realizing that AI and demons were one in itself. Like the demons want to use us as their vessels because I talked at the beginning how they're formless. They don't have bodies. So they try to possess us to exist here in our realm. But not only
Mm.
that, I believe like where did the technology for the cell phone come from or the TV? I mean, how are we doing this right now? I mean, God ultimately creates everything, but I believe this information was channeled from the spiritual realm, going all the way back to John Dee, who was Queen Elizabeth I's astrologer, and he told her like what moves to make when to go to war. He was channeling
Mm.
spirits, and he channeled Enochian magic, which is what Solomonic magic is based off of Kabbalah. It all ties back
Mhm.
to Kabbalah, but he also channeled binary code, and the ciphers for our keyboards. These are little ciphers on your keyboard.
Hmm.
And Even language, spelling, spell. You think of linguistics, it's all like, remember God destroyed the Tower of Babel? Like, there's a reason with communication. There's something weird going on there. And binary code was the basis for computers. So that came from the spiritual realm. And it's evolved throughout time to now we have Starlink in the sky. We have 5G towers all over the place. We're all carrying little black occult cube computer or iPhones, and Netanyahu from Israel just said we all have a piece of Israel in our hand if we have that phone. I believe Project Bluebeam actually comes from the phone, from the blue light coming from that information.
Mm,
But even holograms, we don't know what's real anymore. People, oh, I see a UFO.
I
Do you, or
know.
is it a drone?
Right.
Or are you seeing a hologram in the sky? So the Akashic records, I think that there is an energy field that's been created. A lot of people have seen it on psychedelics. It looks like a matrix, like a
Yeah.
code, and I think that's what we're connecting to. I think
I
the
saw that
spiritual.
when I was on psychedelics once looking at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
cloud.
So many people have seen it. It's real. It's real, and it looks like matrixy. And this goes back to code, right? Channeled from the spiritual realm, and this goes all the way back to the beginning, to the Book of Dead, to Kabbalah. I mean, when I was calling in spirits and like mind melding with them, I would have like hieroglyphics and like old ancient languages flashing, like slot machines flashing in front of my face,
Wow.
downloading into me. So there is absolutely a connection between demons and artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think the Akashic Records comes from.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you for answering that. I remember
Yeah.
like hearing about it, but I think honestly I got pulled out before I got in too deep to
Good.
anything. But I remember like knowing like, okay, anything you ever need to know is in this
Yeah.
spiritual realm.
And we're not special if we're psychics or mediums or channelers. You're not special. Demons are using you, and it's their power that they're putting into you. We're, gifts from the
Yeah.
saints. The saints don't want spiritual gifts because they often lead to pride. It's crazy.
Hmm.
Like and we're really, this life is about humbling ourselves and returning back to God, not being some special person here who can tell you what your another person's thinking or whatever. That's just, honestly, it's an invasion of privacy.
Yeah. 1 second, Kara. I'm gonna grab my
Yeah.
baby. She's gonna be with me for the
I
closing of
love
the
it. That's great. That's great. I love kids.
She wakes up and the first thing out of her mouth, Mama.
Oh, that's
So
sweet. That's
we're-
awesome. Oh, pretty blue eyes. Oh, she's sweet.
thank
Hey.
you.
What's her name again?
Mila.
Mila. Hi, Mila. Hi, I'm Kara. Oh, you're lucky, baby. You got baptized Orthodox right away. You have a guardian angel. Yeah, God is with
Yes.
you. You got good parents who love you, and a nice dad who cares about you. And you get to be with your grandparents too. And your mom is so sweet. Oh, she's precious.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wish we
Oh.
had like all the time in the world to keep
Yeah. Well, I'll
talking.
come back anytime. I love connecting with you, and I want to have you interview me too on my show.
Yes, yes, and I will. And I'm so excited about that. Did you want to say anything about coming to you've weaved
Yeah.
Orthodoxy
Yeah.
in throughout all of
Yeah.
this? But yeah, we could end there.
So, after I was working as a psychic medium and I had the vision of Jesus, I all of a sudden I realized I was a follower of Christ, and that made me a Christian, which was something I had avoided my entire life. I thought there were massive problems in Christianity. I thought it was full of cults. And I didn't know there were different denominations in Christianity. I didn't know Catholics were Christian. I didn't know Mormons were Christian. And so I ended up connecting with this woman who had been a guest on my podcast, Let's Be Friends, she was a Hollywood symbolism decoder, but also a Christian. And so I started going to her Bible study twice a week, and I started learning Christianity from her. She told me to not go to churches; they were all infiltrated. To not go to any other Bible studies, and she became my mentor. We actually ended up starting a podcast together called the Not So Secret Societies podcast, which became very popular. Ended up falling out and just falling apart because I started questioning the type of Christianity she was teaching me, which I didn't know was charismatic. She was giving me like a deliverance form that was like 10 pages long. It was like, have you watched Harry Potter? You need to cast that demon out. Do you have generational curses in your family? It was insane
Yeah.
stuff. But
Have you ever drank Starbucks? You got the
I
Starbucks demon?
know. Belicina's on that cup. Yeah. It was so crazy. And I just started questioning stuff, and eventually it was too much for her, and she cut me out of her life, changed the Bible study link, and I got burnt by Christianity right away. But through that bitter cup, I came to realize there were all these different denominations, and I was in a pretty crazy one that came out of the 1960s from fake revivals. I have to go in and research all this stuff and look into it. So then I, went to a non-denominational church eventually, and a friend was telling me about in town. It's ironically, it's the church Joe Rogan goes to now.
Oh,
Yeah, and I got pressured to get baptized there by my editor for my book. She kept pressuring me to get baptized. I finally did it because I thought I'd already been baptized by the Holy Spirit, and that, that I was good, and I didn't need this outward sign of an inward change. That's what everybody forced me to believe that a baptism was. And so I was like, okay, my testimony was very popular. I gave it on the Not So Secret Society's podcast because my co-host at that time, her audience, who was mostly Christian, were concerned about her teaming up with me for this podcast because I came out of the occult, and she's like, let's give your testimony or I'm not going to collaborate with you anymore. And so our audience knows that you're not in the occult anymore. And I didn't even know what a testimony was. I didn't know
yeah.
Christians did this. So I have a pretty wild testimony. So I gave my testimony on our conspiracy podcast called Not So Secret Societies. It was called Jesus Christ Saved My Life. And it went viral, like big time viral. And so the public had been watching me come out of the occult and into Christianity. So I thought I better get baptized and show the outward sign of my inward change.
Yeah.
But what happened was, as I started questioning things even more, because I'm like, how are there all these different denominations in Christianity that all believe something different? This reminds me of the New Age and the occult. Like, in all these, everything can't be true. All paths can't lead to God, because then nothing is true. Because we know that the path is narrow and few will find it. So I went and started researching church history. And I was like, what was the beginning? Like, in the first church, it was very clear that Jesus taught the apostles the Orthodox, unchanged religion or church. And
Yes.
so I went to an Orthodox church to try things out. And I thought I was going to be demonically attacked when I went in. I had all these crazy thoughts in my head that the saints were really just the fallen angels in disguise, and
A
that
lot of people believe that.
communion was satanic, and all these crazy things. But because I want the truth, and I had been wrong so many times in my life, I was open to going and checking it out. And so I went to Orthodox church, and I never left. And my first time being in there, and I did hear this in my head. It was, "You're spiritually sick." And I was like, "Spiritually sick? I've been baptized. Like, I follow Jesus. How could I be?" But then I just kept going back to the Orthodox church, and soon enough, I became a catechumen. And part of why I became a catechumen, and I'm writing another book called Becoming Human, which actually the process of orthodoxy is considered to become human.
Yeah.
We are made in the image of God. We are not like him right now. So orthodoxy is to try to bring us home. Our sin is seen as our illness. The church is seen as the hospital. Repentance is how we're saved. But then communion is what perfects us over time through confession, prayer, and fasting. It's a whole thing. We don't earn our salvation, but like St. Paul tells us, that it's a race that we need to run till the end. And so I wanted to become a catechumen because I was still being traumatized by demons. Even though I'd been baptized Protestant, even though I becoming a catechumen, going to the Orthodox Church, I was still having these voices in my head try to kill me. It was really bad. It was actually worse than it had ever been. And my next book is going to really talk about this, because Here Comes Trouble ends with me becoming a catechumen, because I discovered there were all these different denominations of Christianity, even that the Catholic Church had schismed in 1054. They actually had started schisming in 500. I just learned that yesterday, but eventually officially left in 1054. So I just was like, I had to go to Orthodoxy because it was the fullest truth. It was unchanged. That's what I wanted. And so at the time, though, I was being traumatized, right? This was summer 2024, with these demons in my head trying to kill me. And so I went to my priest I became a catechumen, because he didn't do the prayers of exorcism over me. You're supposed to, and he didn't. And I went to him for an exorcism, and he wouldn't do an exorcism. He gave me holy water and said, "Take this home and bless your house." And so I did that, and it kind of helped a little bit, but I still was not okay. And the house I was living in was the same house that I had been doing all the magic rituals in, and I really think that it had changed the land and everything there. And I went home to Michigan, where I'm from, and I remember when I was a kid, I had an icon of Mother Mary, and it was always next to the statue of Buddha. My parents weren't religious or anything, but my mom had inherited this icon from my great grandmother, who was Russian, who came over as an orphan like generations back. And I remembered it. And so I was home, and I said, "Mom, can I see that icon of Mary?" Because I knew what it was now. And what she did, she pulled it out, and it was in the basement in a box. She brought it out and gave it to me. And I opened it up, and in the back it said, "This this icon has touched the original miracle working icon in Rome. It's our mother of perpetual help. So it's a third class relic. And third class, I was talking about bones of the saints, and like holy items will heal you and perform miracles. It's very real. Just like the spiritual realm can make items demonic, or, you know, like the black cubes and all that stuff. So this icon was a third class relic. It was our mother of perpetual help, where Mary's holding Jesus and his sandals falling off because he's seeing what he's going to have to do.
Mm.
And it had touched the original in Rome. So it was a miracle working icon that was in my family. And I brought that home. My mom gave it to me. I brought that home to the house I was living in. And essentially, this is all going to be in my next book. Mary worked miracles in my life and got me out of that house, out of that situation, and eventually out of the church where I became a catechumen, because they would not baptize me there. They would not do they didn't do the prayers of exorcisms over me that I was desiring. And they would not baptize me with chrismation. So and this is something that I know like is very controversial in the Orthodox community, but
Yeah.
I believe there's one baptism for the remission of your sins, as Nicene Creed speaks, and it's an Orthodox baptism. It's a very specific baptism. Baptism means full immersion. The word means full immersion. It's a triple immersion with holy water, done by priests. It's very specific, because after I had my Protestant baptism, like I said, I was still being just demonically attacked. They were still in my head. I still felt like there were demons in me, and I knew I needed a real baptism before chrismation. And the church where I became a catechumen would not give it to me. And so the icon came in my life, and eventually I went on a road as a catechumen, and a very, very difficult catechesis for a year and a half. It's different for everybody. When you become a catechumen, you become a learner in the Orthodox Church. It's also a purification stage to get you ready for chrismation, so that you can receive Holy Communion, which I said perfects us for salvation. And so I eventually found a church that would baptize me with chrismation, and I was baptized and chrismated July 22nd on St. Mary Magdalene's feast day. And Jesus had to cast 7 demons out of her because she was an occultist. Did you know that? And so it was perfect
Wow.
day for me to be baptized. I had the exorcism done, everything. And I can't even tell you the difference that I feel since then.
Wow.
And the next book's going to talk all about this. And,
Okay.
yeah.
I can't wait. I know this book was amazing, so I'm sure the next book is going to be amazing too.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this is my book, Here Comes Trouble. You can get it on Amazon. You can also get it on my website, karamosher.com. I have a limited print on there as well, which it looks like this, that I sign for people if you order it on my website. But yeah, and the audiobook's coming soon. I'm going to start recording it today.
Yes, that's such a good idea too, because a lot of people they don't have the time to sit and read, so that's
Yeah.
perfect.
No, people are all about video and audio these days.
Yes. Well, Kara, thank you so much for coming on today and telling this part of your testimony. There's so much more to unpack. Maybe we'll do another episode
Yeah.
eventually. I'm sure we will. But yeah, thank you for being with us today and just sharing your
Thank you.
journey. I
Thank you
appreciate
for
you.
having me. It's been my pleasure to be on the show, and I'm so grateful that God brought us together. I know He brought us together for a time like this. I'm grateful to have you as my friend, and I'm excited for your book, because your book is amazing, and your story is amazing, and there's so many parallels between our story. Is your little girl changing the light? That's so funny. I love it. You're a super mom. You're
Oh
a
my
super mom,
gosh.
Michaela.
I try to do what I can around here.
You're doing a great job. Keep it up.
Oh, well, thank you. I
I
love
love
you, and I
you.
will talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.